Okay, so continuing on with this floor plan, I am not going to make a video showing the completion of the dimensions. Adding the dimensions is very simple. As I said, you do need to be sure that you've set up your dimension style so that your primary format should be architectural, your precision should be 0 feet 0 inches. Your unit form, your symbols and arrows should be architectural tick, and then your text size should be about 5 or 6 inches. Feel free to make it whatever size you're comfortable with. Again, some creativity is acceptable and allowed. You don't have to copy what I do exactly. Now, what we're going to do next is we're going to go ahead and we're going to create a second floor plan. And the easiest way to create a second floor plan is, well, there are two ways we can do it. One is we can just simply copy this first floor plan and delete what's missing. And the second way is we can just go ahead and take the dimensions here and transfer them over to another floor plan. So let's take the second method. So what we're going to do here, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to add a construction layer. So we're going to open up our layers. And my layers opened up on a different level. So I'm going to just add in a new layer. Label it construction. Again, I've always preferred to use a relatively dark gray for construction, so we see it, but it's not overwhelming. And then we know that this dimension here is 30 feet. And we can look back on our drawing here, and we see that we have 14.9 and 15.3, so we have 30 feet, and this dimension is 30 feet. So what we're going to do is we're going to give ourselves, let's say, 10 feet between. So we're going to put a construction line 40 feet out. We'll come back to AutoCAD. Construction line. So we'll move out here, type 40 feet, use our tracking line, and we of course put that in the wrong layer, but we'll fix that. We'll just click on this, put it into that construction layer, and then we're going to want to, of course, put another construction layer so it's parallel. Construction here. So this construction line, put on the construction layer itself. Just do there. So this will be our corner. We can then put another construction line, which will help us determine where this is. And then we know that this line here, this point is, let me go back and look, 15.3 feet over. So we can make another vertical construction line from here, or alternatively what we can do is we can actually do an offset. So we can do an offset 15 feet 3 inches offset from here just like that. One more construction line here. And then finally another offset at 30 feet. From this point, and actually we can't see it here. We have to expand a little bit. So this is our offset at 30 feet. So now all we have to do is go into our wall layer and draw our second floor. Oh, and start here. And we're not showing our, there we go, there's our intersection. Our intersection there. Come back down, we want our intersection here. Excuse me, that's not the correct line. We actually have to draw down to this line, right? Because this is the side of the house that extends out. And then we take to our intersection here. I'm not sure why that is coming up as midpoint and not intersection. It really should be coming out to intersection. And then finally, we're going to come back to that point and we're going to end. Now, I'm just going to check my dimensions. $30 feet, good. And on this dimension, from here to there, we should be 30 feet. And then here we should be 14 feet 9. Looks like we're 14.5. And so maybe the center line didn't come out in the right place. Let's measure from here to here. 15 feet 3. From there to there. Okay, so now we are 14 feet 9. Okay, so that's fine. So that gives us our outside walls for the second floor. To make the inside walls, we can then just do an offset, 6 inches. Before we do that, let's do the following so that we don't accidentally choose a construction line. Let's turn off our construction layer. So now we can see our outline. And then, of course, what we have to do is we have to combine these into one single polyline. So remember, to combine into a polyline, we come up here to modify. We choose edit polyline. Choose one of these lines. Do we want to turn it into one? Yes. Choose join. Now here we can simply box everything. If we box everything, we select all the objects and we simply hit enter. So now this is combined into one polyline. We want to do offset. We type 5 inches. Select our polyline and move inside. Now we have a second floor. So your job is to take this drawing and put interior walls wherever you like. So you can customize the second floor as you wish. You don't have to put in a stairwell or a stairway for the second floor. You do have to put in windows. But in fact, we'll put in the front windows. However, before we put in the front windows, let's build the front facade. So before we build the front facade, let's turn on our construction layer again. And then from this edge, we're going to make another line, start of 40 feet. So again, we'll leave 10 feet in between these drawings. So start, actually, yeah, we can just do offset. So we'll type 40 feet. Alternatively, we could have chosen this line and done 10 feet. Been just as fine. We choose this line. I didn't hit enter yet, so I need to start again. And I want to be in my construction layer. So offset, come down here, type 40 feet, hit enter, choose this line, and move over. And where did my construction line go? I'm not sure what happened there. Let me undo. So it put it 40 feet in the other direction. I'm not quite sure why. I thought I had moved in this direction, but apparently I didn't. So let's try that one more time. So 40 feet, enter. Choose my construction line. I move over here. I hit enter. Okay, so there's our construction line. So this would be at the start of our facade. Now, we know that the front facade, the width will be 30 feet. So we can put another line 30 feet to the right of this line. So again, we type 30 feet, enter, click on this line, put in that construction line. Now we have to think a little bit about the floors and what this is going to look like. And what the front is going to look like. Well, typically, there are two ways you can build a house. One is that you can build it on a slab, in which case it's directly on the ground. Second is you can put it on a foundation. So if you put it on a foundation, it won't be on the ground, and typically the part of the foundation is going to be showing. So we're going to assume that this house is going to be on a foundation. And additionally, just to make things a little bit easier, we're going to assume the thickness of that foundation, or the amount of that foundation showing, is exactly the same as this distance right here, whatever it is, 4 feet 6 inches. So this house will be 4 feet 6 inches off the ground. So this will be our foundation. And our house will actually start here. So what happens after our foundation? Well, we're going to have our floor and our subfloor, and we're going to have our 2 by whatever, it's 2 by 8s or 2 by 10s that are showing our floors. So we're going to assume, and again, a lot of these are assumptions because we're not building an actual house. But we're going to assume that we're building a house and it's built with 2 by 10s, and then we have 2 inches of finished flooring. So let's say tiles and then plywood and then tiles. So that our door will be actually 2 feet above the layer of this foundation. So we're going to put another construction line that's 2 feet above this line. So let's go ahead and do that. So we can put an offset. Two feet. Click. Right there. So that's where our actual floor will start. Now, next assumption is going to be ceiling height. We're going to assume that we have an 8-foot ceiling and actually I put in a 2 feet here. I should have put in 1 foot. We're using let's say 2 by 10s, and then we're adding enough height to give us 1 foot, not 2 feet. So this needs to actually move down by 1 foot. So let's copy this, or click on this, and then we're going to move it, click on it, and move it down by 1 foot. And alternatively, what you could do is you could actually, and I'll go back and show you, we could just plain delete it. We could just click on this, delete it, and then just do another offset. So offset 1 foot, click on this, and move it up. So now we're going to assume that we have 8 feet of floor to ceiling height. So we're going to go ahead and put that in as a construction line. Excuse me. So click here. There's our 8 feet of floor to ceiling height. And then we're going to add another foot for, again, our flooring. Our joists, the 2 by 10s or whatever those that dimensional lumber is to build our floor, and then our subfloor and whatever floor covering is above it. So we'll add 1 more foot. And do another offset. Finally, we have another floor to ceiling height, 8 feet. And then, of course, above our ceiling, we have to have a ceiling itself. We have to have, again, joists for the attic or whatever space is above that. We'll only have building essentially a 2-floor house, but there would be an attic above that. So we're going to have another 1 foot, almost, even though it may not be a foot. We're going to assume and call it a 1 foot space. So do 1 more offset. That's another foot. So at this point, we're actually ready to go ahead and draw in our front facade. So we're going to go into our wall layer, and the only part we're actually drawing in is the outside of this box. Now, as you do this, and as you can see here, I didn't. You need to make sure that you're actually ending on the intersections. So you may need to blow up your drawing at each intersection point. And actually here I went too high, right? I only need to go to that point. So let me undo and start over again. I'm going to undo everything. And I'm going to start over. I'm going to make sure I start at this corner. And I'm going to blow this up so I can see that I'm properly hitting that intersection point. And then I'm going to shrink it back down. And I'm only going to come up to this point. And again, I'm going to blow it up to see that I'm properly ending the line on the intersection. Shrink it down, come over here again, blow it up so we can see that we're on the intersection. Shrink it down, come back here, and blow it up again. If you don't do that, then you always run into the possibility, as you saw me do the first time, that you're not going to hit that intersection correctly. And when you do that, then you're going to be prone to errors. Now, we need to add one other construction line, right? We need to add this other one for the 15.3 feet in from this line. So let's go ahead and do that. Or alternatively, we could not do that. Let's add it in anyway. We can do that with offset. So a construction line, offset, 15 feet, 3 inches from this line, and we move inward, or move towards the right, and we hit enter. And then we're just going to draw the line in. So we're going to draw it from this intersection right up to that intersection. Now, here's one thing I can't explain to you. I don't have an answer for that. If you see as I draw this line, it very easily finds that intersection. But you could see that sometimes when I drew, although actually I didn't put that in. I did put that on the construction layer, but we'll change that. But you saw when I was drawing the other lines, it didn't easily find the intersection line. I don't have a good explanation for why AutoCAD does that. So of course, but no, when I started, actually I didn't start on the. I didn't start on the intersection. So AutoCAD can be funny at times. This is why you always put dimensions in. You always use your dimensions as a final check to make sure that you've done everything right. Okay, so here's what happened. Here's what happened that time. I actually started on my midpoint. Remember, your midpoint would be 15 and 15 feet, but this line is at 15.3. So that's actually what happened. Why I started there. And when you have a midpoint near, see there's actually a that would be if I ended at the midpoint, but I want to end at the intersection. When you have a midpoint and intersection near each other, then you can run into issues. Okay, so I end the line there. I'm going to turn off construction lines. And again, I did put that in construction layer. So let me first move that over to the wall layer. And now I'm going to go into my wall layer and then turn off my construction layer for a second, just so we can look at this. So this right now is what my front facade looks like. I still have to add my doors and my windows. So I'm going to put my construction layer. I don't want to be on my construction layer. I still want to be on my walls layer. But I want to turn my construction layer back on. And the reason for that is the construction layer tells me, for instance, where my door is located. So I can take my door here, move, and for right now, I'm just concerned about moving it close. I'm going to just plop it somewhere near where it's going to be. It doesn't have to be exact at this point. And now that it's here, I'm going to move it so that it's exact. So we're going to choose move, and I'm going to choose this corner. Now, before I do this, or before I place this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back all the way to this first drawing, and I'm going to come over here, and I want to measure this little distance, which is 9 inches. So the right side of the door needs to be 9 inches away from that vertical line. And that's the dimension that we use to place the door. So we click on the door, we select move, we select this lower corner. Now we come to this intersection and we get a tracking line. We choose 9 inches and then we hit enter. And that places the door. Now for windows, let's take the two windows. Actually, we can move them over together. Click on the two windows. We'll choose move. Again, we can click anywhere because we're just trying to put these in the general area right now. Move them over here. And so what happens here is that even though these are grouped, we can actually move them separately. So we need to be careful about how we move them. So right now I'm just going to move them. I'm just going to place them again close, so that we know that one of the windows is somewhere over there. We're not too concerned about exact location at this point. And the second window somewhere over here. And now we're going to place it more exact. So again, we know that the window is located, the center of the window is 5 feet 9 inches from this edge. Now we don't know where the height of the window is. And in fact, we get to choose the height, right? Because we're the architects. We don't have a plan that tells us where the height of the window is. So what we can do is we could take this window, measure it. We see that it's 5 feet. We know that the distance, the height of the wall from wall to ceiling is 8 feet. So we could move this 18 inches. We could basically center it, make it 18 inches off the bottom. So what we can do is we can select the window, move, choose this center point, so the center of the window, get a tracking line from here, move it over by 5 feet, (9 inches). This now puts it in the correct location horizontally, but nobody puts a window in that's at floor level. So now we can select it again, move, again select the center, get a tracking line in the vertical dimension, and move it up 18 inches. And now we have a window that's centered in the space here. Now we can do the same thing with the other window. This window is not quite centered in the space here, but it's 7 feet 4 inches over from this corner. So we'll use that information to go ahead and place it. So we'll select the window, move, again select the very center, get a tracking line from this corner, or from the edge, from the corner there of the wall, and then move it over by 7 feet 4 inches. And then after we do that, again we center it, we select it, we select move again we select the center, and actually in this case, since we're just moving it up vertically, it doesn't matter if we select the center or not, and we just want to move it up by 18 inches. So that's one way to center it, to place the windows. Now, if we take a look here, and I'm not 100% sure, but if I draw a line, yeah. So if you see here, if we draw a line at the door level, you can see the door level is just a little bit higher than the top of the windows. So another way to do it would to make it such that the window was at the top of the window was at the exact same height as the door. So that would be a second way to do it. Now, for the upstairs windows, let's play with that a little bit. So let's take a window here. We have this one window left, and we're going to choose move. And of course, generally, downstairs you have things like living rooms and dens and things like that. And double windows or large windows are fairly common. Upstairs you have things like bedrooms, and you generally don't have double windows, but you may have 2 single windows. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a single window, and we're going to basically do the same thing. So we're going to place it here, so it's on the edge. And then we're just going to move it over, I'm not sure how far here. I'm going to move it over 2 feet. And then again, move it up 18 inches. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to click on this window, and I'm going to use the array function to make an array of windows. So I'm going to have AutoCAD place the windows. So Right now that's if we have 3 feet 9 inches between the windows. We have 4 columns, and actually this has 4 columns, 3 rows. So we have lots of rows. We also have 3 rows of windows. Well, we don't want any rows, right? So we have 0 rows. And maybe we want 6 feet between the windows. See, we want more than 6 feet between the windows. The total, if we have 2 feet over here, and I don't recall if the total will include from the beginning or the end, but if it goes to the end, then we would want a total of 26 feet because we would have 2 feet on the end that we wouldn't count, and 2 feet in the beginning we wouldn't count. So let's put 26 feet here, and it'll go ahead and recompute. So let's put 8 inches between them. Rows 1, I'm not sure why that. All right, so you can see 26 feet is too far. So we could go if the windows are 2.5, so I think I'd want 2.5 smaller, I believe. So 23 feet 6 inches. Let's see what that does. Okay, so there you have it. The 4 windows are completely evenly spaced. We left 2 feet on this side, and we should have 2 feet on the other side. So if I look over, if I measure this distance, we have 2 feet, and I measure this distance. Actually, if I measure this distance, we have 2 feet 1. So they're not quite evenly spaced. We have 2 feet 1 on this side and 2 feet on the other side. Well, actually, let me check that again. Maybe I got it wrong. No, we have 2 feet on both sides. So these windows are evenly spaced. Now remember, evenly spaced is not always even. Everything's relative to something, right? So that doesn't necessarily mean that these are evenly spaced. So this over here is going to be 2 feet 11. And this distance here is going to be 2 feet 5. So maybe you want to center these two and center those two. It's all up to you for how you want to do it. So if we turn off our construction lines now, this is what the front facade of our house looks like. Now, the other thing we might potentially want to add, and we probably do want to add here, if we turn on our construction lines for a minute. I'll go back into our walls layer, turn construction lines on. We probably want to show a line here to show a line where essentially our foundation ends and our wall starts, and our actual side, basically our siding would start. And then we might even want to have, a couple of basement windows. So let's say we had a, let's say 24, comma 18. See if that comes out right. Yeah, maybe we have a couple of, and actually these would be in our, this would be in a window layer. So I added in two 24 by 18 inch windows, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to place these 7.5 feet over from the edge, just so they're in a known location. So I'm going to start here. First move it to that point, and then select and move. Actually, what I'll do is I'll place it like this, and then I'll move it I'll select this lower corner, and I'm going to move this corner 7 feet 6 inches, comma, minus 2 feet. So 2 feet down, 7 feet 6 inches in. At 2 feet's a little low. So maybe 1 foot 6 inches. And actually only 7 feet. So let me go right back to where it was. So selecting from this corner, Oop. We select and we move, and then we can just actually type. So 7 feet, comma, minus 18. Like so, roughly centers it. And then we can delete this one, and we'll just take this one and copy it. Move, excuse me. Let's start that again. Select, copy from this corner, and we'll move it over by 15 feet. All right, so there we have two. So now we have two basement windows. We turn off our construction layer. Selected our construction layer. Go back to walls. Turn off construction. All right, so that's what the front facade of the house is. Now, moving to the backyard, and this is sort of related to those of you who may be civil engineering students. Let's say you want to make some trees. Well, how do we make trees? Well, let's go into the tree layer. And let's use this ellipse function. And if you notice, the ellipse lets us make various circles makes circles with essentially two diameters. So you have a diameter sort of in the X direction and a diameter in the Y dimension. And we can use that to do things like this. So we can do that. And you can call that a tree, or you can call that a UFO, I suppose, if you're so inclined. And it's a little bit offset. What we can do is we can actually, if we, put that back. We can take one, move it over here, select this one. Now, if we can move this one back from the center. We put the two centers on top of each other. Now, once we do that, we can select these. And then we can group them. So they're a group. And then we can go to select them again. So now we're selecting them as a group. And we could array them. And now we have either an array of galaxies, UFOs, or an orchard, depending on what you see and what you want to call it. I like to call it an orchard. But anyway, the reason I'm pointing this out and showing this to you is because oftentimes in civil engineering projects, you do have to plant trees or bushes, or even place things like power lights and telephone poles, and they have to get placed at certain known distances. And you can use the array function to do that. And this is just one example of how you can do that. Okay, so what do you have to do to this drawing to complete it? I'm not going to show you the rest of this. What you need to do is you need to complete the second floor. So in the second floor, you have to add windows. The windows on the front should match the windows that you have on the second floor over here. Now, you don't have to have this exact layout that I have for the second floor. You can use your own creativity. But whatever windows you have here, their openings and the windows that you show should match whatever windows you show here. You need to put some walls here, at least a couple. Let's say at least 3 walls. I don't want you to have one big dance floor up on your second floor. Be creative. You should dimension these 2 plans. Finish dimensioning the first one as shown, and then for layer 2 here, the second floor, you only need to dimension the inside. The outside is already dimensioned, right? Because it's dimensioned. Actually, sorry. You do need to completely dimension this, because you'll have to dimension the windows. So you should have front windows. You should have at least one window on each side. So at least one window here, one window here, one window here, and at least 2 windows on the front. Finally, we can now go to the layout. So when we go to the layout, you'll need to make 3 layouts. So one layout will be this. So we'll go to the View, Viewport, New Viewport, Single, and actually we should do this in, if we don't have a viewport layer, you can use layer 0, that's perfectly fine. You don't have to add a viewport layer. Viewport, New Viewport, Single, okay. You really want to turn off snap to reference points so you can draw this in yourself. Draw in your viewport. You're going to get everything. You don't want everything. So what you need to do is you need to click on your viewport. If you double click and go back to your layout, go back to your model. Click on your model, then click on your layout. You'll come back to this. Once you're here, you want to take one drawing and make it a drawing of your floor, first floor. You'll have to annotate this drawing, so you should come over into the text box. Enter the project, first floor, date, the scale. What is the scale going to be? I don't know what the scale is going to be. It's probably going to be, you should be able to use the same scale that I'm going to set up right now. So if I click on this, remember I can click here, and then once you do that, outside of the area, you can click on properties, and then in the scale, remember you don't want to use the custom scale. One half. Yeah, so you're going to probably use 1/2 inch equals 1 foot. Now notice we have a little bit of this drawing in here. So what we need to do is we need to make the viewport a bit smaller. So we can come over here and shrink the viewport a little bit. And let's see, we're not actually shrinking the viewport here. We're moving it. We need to do it that way, from the corners. So put your viewport back centered. And adjust as necessary. Adjust it so that your drawing is centered. And on this side, you should adjust it so you don't see those leftover windows. Or alternatively, you should just delete those windows because we're done with them. So now that we're done with them, we can go ahead and delete them. So that will become layout number 1. Remember, the viewport doesn't need to be centered, but ultimately when you're done, the drawing should be centered on the page. So if your viewport is completely centered, then your drawing should be completely centered as well. And then over here, again, fill in your text. You should fill in this portion here. Project date, scale, sheet. This sheet will be one of 3 because we're going to make 3 drawings, right? You don't have to do the drawing of your UFO forest. Layout 2. Same thing. View, viewport, new viewport, single. Okay. And it doesn't matter if you pick the lower corner or the upper corner. Go into the viewport. Expand it so that you only see this. Adjust the scale. So remember, if you click out here, you're going to come completely out of the viewport. You can then click on the edge of the viewport, which will let you select the viewport properties. So you go to properties. Your scale should be the same. So 1/2 inch equals 1 foot. Again, this should be dimensioned. Click on the outside or hit escape to come out of the viewport. If you need to, adjust the viewport size. So you can see here we don't want that in the viewport. So adjust the size out or adjust the size inward. Click on escape to come out of the viewport. Fill out the text box. Project. Second floor, date, the date, scale, whatever that scale is, 1/2 inch equals 1 foot. Sheet, 2 of 3. Layout number 3. View. Viewport. New viewport. Single. Okay. Draw your viewport. Oop. Go into your viewport. Center on what you want to see. Blow it up. Click to exit your viewport. Click on the edge of the viewport. Enter the properties. And I lost my scale there. Choose your scale. Half inch equals 1 foot. On this one, we have a little bit extra on that side. Shrink your viewport so it doesn't show. Hit escape to exit the viewport. Fill in the project information. Make sure you save your project or save your files. That completes this drawing, and that actually completes the class. This is the final drawing you have to hand in, and there won't be any additional information that I'll be going over. So we are actually completing the class today.